Hey guys, before we get started into this tutorial video, I thought I would just say a big thanks for your support. If you didn't already know, Hillsong also gets a percentage of all these products that I sell on Multitracks, so you're helping to support not only me, but my local church. And it allows me to obviously keep on making my products and patches from Hillsong albums available to the public. So big thanks for that. I'll just quickly mention my website as well, Peter James Productions. If you want to, scroll down to the bottom and sign up to my emailing list. That way you'll be emailed about updates to this product and other ones that you've purchased from Multitracks. So that might be a good idea. Also check out my YouTube channel, Peter James Productions. I often put tutorial videos for additional tricks and tips for MainStage, and obviously show walkthrough videos and new products. So subscribe to that if you want to as well. Okay, so if you've downloaded this product from Multitracks, this is what you'll get. You'll get the MainStage template, and you'll also get 4 playback zip files and 5 sample zip files as well. So once you've unzipped them, they should look like that. And I'm going to show you the install process. So go to the template, right mouse click, go show package contents. Now I've already installed this, so yours will have nothing inside, nothing inside the samples folder and nothing inside the playback folder. So I suggest not copying the files like this. Actually copy the contents of those playback files into the playback folder so they look like they do on the left hand side. Alternatively, you can put the playback files anywhere on your hard drive, and then the first time you open the template, direct MainStage to those individual files and then save it after that. And then just repeat this process for the samples. I'm just going to show you something else as well. If you're wanting to use this product just by itself, if you want to use the patches inside the Complete Worship Bundle, this will work perfectly. But if you want to use these patches in maybe Logic X, or you want to import them into another MainStage template, I'll show you another location that you need to drop these files into. Okay, so what you need to do is go to Macintosh hard drive, library, application support, Logic, sampler, instruments. As you can see, I've already put a bunch of my other products in here so I can use them in different templates and in Logic. You can create your own folder. Maybe you just call it Complete Worship Bundle. Okay, I've already done that, so that's not going to work, but you get the general idea. And what you need to do is drag these files here and put them into that folder that I've already created. It's already there and I've already done it, so I'm not going to do that. Let's put that back there, undo. I also like to keep my samples in the same location, just because it makes sense to keep the product together and not split it up over my hard drive. So I would suggest also putting those samples in that same folder. That's one location you can put them in. A second location is here, and it's Macintosh hard drive users. Yours won't be Peter James, obviously. Yours will be either your name or the username of the computer that you're using. Music, audio, music apps, samples is where you want to put the samples, and sampler instruments is where you want to put the sampler instruments. That's that folder there. So you don't have to put them in both, just either or, and your computer will now be able to find them from any different MainStage template or any other Logic X template. Great. So before we open up the product, you also have to make sure that you've installed the piano in 162. So I'm going to go to that website right now. Now all these links are in the install manual, so you can just click on those and go directly to the page. So you're going to want to download the SFZ version and download it there. If you do have trouble downloading it, you can use the direct download, which I think costs $1, or you can email support@multitracks.com and they'll send you a link to download it for free. So you've got a few different options for downloading that. You're going to also have to install the player that those samples are played in. Again, this link is in the install manual, so just go there, download it, install it, and that's that. If you purchase the Complete Worship Bundle Plus, that also requires Valhalla Vintage Verb, But just so you know, the Complete Worship Bundle does not require Valhalla Vintage Verb. Okay, let's open the product. Okay, so now that it's opened, I'm just gonna show you this tutorial video with the Complete Worship Bundle Plus. It's exactly the same as the Complete Worship Bundle. The only difference is it requires Valhalla Vintage Verb. The other one just uses MainStage reverbs, so that's the only difference. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need to do is just install that piano. So what you need to do, just go to the first one here, Interstellar Dreams 1. Go across to here. It should already come up with this plugin. If it doesn't, just go to Audio Units Instruments, find this right here and put that in. You're going to need to do it for both the close and the ambient channel strips right there. Once you've done that, this is already installed, so yours will probably come up blank. So just go import, and if it's not coming up with the location, just type IVY and your computer will search for it, and then hit the close one. I've already done it, so I'm not going to open it. And do the exact same thing for this one, but put the ambient one in there. So import and the ambient one there. Once you've done that, I suggest saving the concert. Just go save or Command S, and that's all installed. The great thing about the way I've designed this is it uses aliases for the different pianos. So once you change or import the piano at the top, it's an alias for all of them. That also means that when you're changing between patches, your piano won't cut off. You can seamlessly go from one patch to another without your piano cutting off, but only the sounds underneath it will change. So that's really handy to know. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our buffer setting. Actually, before we do that, just double check that your keyboard, your MIDI keyboard, is working with the template. Click on the keyboard there. If it's on all, any keyboard that you plug in should work. If it's not working, go assign and just play any notes on your MIDI keyboard. I'm using a Yamaha for this example, so it's found that. Now when I play anything, you can tell that it's working. The next thing you're going to want to do, go to Preferences, Audio, and if I'm going too quickly, obviously this is a video, so just pause the video and rewind and just take it at your own pace. Okay, so this is your output, this is your interface. So if you're using an interface, just select that. I usually use Universal Audio Apollo for live use, but because I'm at home doing this video, I'm just using my benchmark as the output. The next thing you want to do is go to sample rate and make sure it's on 44.1. That's actually CD quality, so it's better than iTunes quality, it's better than Spotify. So you really don't need any higher sample rate, because if you start upping the sample rate, you're going to up the CPU stress on your computer, and that's the last thing we want to do, because you'll start getting audio pops and things like that. The next thing you want to do is go to Advanced Settings, and you've got to choose your buffer size. Now, this isn't a one setting fits all, because I don't know what computer you're using, so it's very hard for me to give you a definite setting for that. So what you need to do, I suggest somewhere around 128, but having said that, like I said, everyone's got a different computer, so I don't know if you've got a new one, old one, what your specs are. So I'll just try to explain a little bit about these settings and how it affects your template and playing. So a lower buffer setting will give you less latency. So what latency is the time it takes for the computer to produce audio after you've hit a MIDI note. Now we're only talking about milliseconds, which is hardly noticeable, but you do start to feel it once you get up to 512, 1024. So in an ideal world, you would have this at the lowest possible setting, so as soon as you hit a note, it'll automatically spit out the audio. But this isn't the perfect world, and everyone's got different computers, so you're going to have to make a compromise between latency and how powerful your computer is. So like I said, the lower the number, the less latency. The higher the number, the more latency. The higher the number, the less CPU load your computer or less stress your computer's under. So what I suggest is picking something in the middle, let's say that, finding a patch. Let's bring this down here so you can see it. Turning on everything. Just wait, I've got the spinning wheel of death. Okay, here we go. Turn on every single patch, and then just start playing some notes and take a look at your CPU load when you start doing that. It doesn't matter what you play, just play a bunch of notes, many notes as you can. And see where your CPU load gets to. If it's below 50, you can probably decrease it. So it's less latency, but more CPU load. Once you start hitting the red, or if you start noticing any audio pops and clicks, that's a really good sign that you need to increase that. So that's just a few little tricks and tips for setting up your buffer setting, like I just did then. I'm going to leave it on 128. Live, I can usually go to 64, but I'm recording this video and the screen capture and everything on top of all that, so I don't want to push my computer too far. While I'm in preferences, I highly suggest you go to general as well and go to auto saving and put never. The thing is, you don't want the computer to start saving your template in the middle of a live set. I've had this happen before and my computer glitches. It kind of almost pauses for half a second and then works again. So the safest thing to do is have it on never and just manually save it whenever you want to save it. So that's another little trick there. As you noticed there, that was a little bit too hot because I was playing extremely loud. If you ever notice any of these going into the red, it'll actually save it and show you that it's gone into the red. That's another way that you'll get audio clips and pops as if your gain level's too high. So I could go into here and I could just reduce that a little bit there and then save it, and then you won't get that annoying audio pop when it gets too hot. Everything else should be perfectly set, but that especially applies if you're starting to add new patches to this MainStage template, etc. Okay, so that's setup all done. Actually, one other thing before I go on to showing you the sounds. All these knobs and sliders are pre-mapped to a Korg Nano Controller 2 out of the box. Now, if you've edited your Korg Nano Controller and changed some of the CC values, you're going to have to remap it. Or if you're using a different controller, you're going to have to map it. And it's pretty easy to do. Just go to Assign, click on the slider that you want to assign, and move the slider on your hardware. Then go to the next one, move the next one, repeat the step for every knob and button, and then they'll all be mapped. Click Assign again, and now I'll move a slider on my hardware and it moves the slider in my virtual hardware setup. So yeah, that's all your setup done. As soon as you've done all that, go save. I'd also suggest backing this up on an external hard drive or something, because if you start tweaking or editing things and make a mistake and you want to go back to the original version, you can do that. There's nothing worse than tweaking a few things, making a mistake, accidentally saving it, and then not being able to get back to the original. So I highly recommend. Another way you can do it is actually compress the file. So just zip it, and that way the computer can't make any changes to it. So yeah, I'd highly recommend saving it or backing it up before you start doing any changes. Okay, so now that everything's installed, I'm going to go through and start showing you all the sounds and how they're all pre-mapped and everything in this template. Let's start off with the pianos. So it's set up into 5 main groups. Everything under the piano set has pianos in it. Everything under the organ set has organs. Rhodes has Rhodes. This is a second type of Rhodes. It's actually a more aggressive Rhodes than this one. This is sweeter. And then we've got a Whirly at the bottom, which is kind of like a Rhodes, but extremely aggressive. And so I've got all those different options in there. We're going to look at the piano ones first. And all of these are the exact same patches, except I've swapped out the piano for an organ here. I've swapped out the organ for Rhodes, etc., etc. So that should all make sense there. Okay, so these buttons at the top are turning on each patch. So This turns on the close mic for the piano. This turns on the ambient mic for the piano. This turns on the warm pad or pads if there's multiple warm pads together. This turns on additional type of pad, a swell pad. This is your leads, it turns them on. While I'm here, I'll keep going across the top. This makes a pulse, so it's a side chaining pulse. Let me show you that. So I'm just going to play a chord and you'll hear it pulsing. Without the pulse, actually I can use my buttons on my MIDI controller to do that. And no pulse, so really simple to turn on a pulse or turn it off. The tempo, that will adjust any delays or the pulse speed. You can either tap tempo it in there, or you can go to attributes and actually type the tempo in. If you're playing with a band that uses click, like we do at Hillsong Church, I'd suggest typing in the tempo because then you're guaranteed to get it spot on. Okay, so that's the pulse. I'll go over to this one. This is actually a motion button for the Motion Shimmer ambient pads that already come installed with this product. So I'll quickly show you one of these. So you push any bottom button on your MIDI controller and it will set up the motion pads. If I turn that off, it's going to stop the kind of auto panning left to right. And then this button here will fade the motion pads. So it's very subtle, it's hardly noticeable. I like it on, so I wouldn't even worry about it and just leave it on constantly. Let me start off another pad and I'll show you what these top ones do as well while I'm on there. This one here is a low pass filter, so it makes it darker and brighter. And this drone mix is mixing between the two different ambient pads. There's one that's a high one and one that's a low one. And straight up and down is a mix of both of those. So that's the Motion Shimmer ambient pads. You've also got volume 2, which is pretty straightforward. You can adjust the volume of those shimmer pads in real time as well. Okay, so I've gone across all these buttons here. Let's do these buttons underneath. So this is a piano. Let's just solo the piano to make it easier. I don't need to use these. I can use my MIDI controller. So let's turn on that. So now all you're going to hear is a piano because this bypasses all the other plugins. If you're noticing CPU issues and you still want to have a low latency, you can bypass some of these other plugins and it'll take the stress off. That's why I had bypass instead of mute, because bypass frees up that plugin and actually uses less CPU. So okay, so this is a piano. Turn this on here and you get an octave of each note, which is great because a lot of Hillsong songs require octave lead lines, so you can simply turn that octave button on and you can play an octave instead of just a single note, just by playing a single note. I'll talk about the other things that are attached to the piano while I'm here as well. So this adds an octave to the reverb. So let's turn up, whoops, wrong slider. Let's turn up the volume so you can hear what it's doing. Hear how it's added an octave above. Now let's increase the decay. So this is how long the reverb is. So you can have it going forever, basically. Until you bring it down. So you've got full control over your reverb. You've got control to turn the octave on or to turn it off. And I'll do it with a longer reverb so you can hear what the shimmer's adding to the sound. So the shimmer's really nice. It gives it a kind of another octave of reverb above the normal. Okay, now we've got delays. We'll go on to them. Let's bring the reverb down so it doesn't get too mushy. We've got a 1/8 delay and a dotted eighth delay. So we've got full control over the volume of each of those delays. That's pretty straightforward. Now with these pads, the same thing applies. We've got octaves for the warm pad. Let's turn that on. I'll play the same chord and it'll double it an octave up. Same thing with this. I've actually left this on by default because I love the octave sound of this pad. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is all your lead sounds. We'll go through this slider here as a volume for that. And instead of an octave, I actually put an up, so you can hold a chord down. And it will turn it into an ARP sound, not just a lead sound, just by hitting that button. Obviously that's the volume for the leads. And then above this, we've got a low pass filter for the leads. So and this one is a low pass filter for the pads. So let's turn on these pads again and I'll show you that. So you can actually use a low pass filter as a kind of volume thing. And it means you can have all of these on. You could even have the leads playing at the same time. And then bring this up. So you've got full dynamic control with the low pass filters as well as the volumes for all of those. I'll just talk about the output because that's the only thing I kind of haven't mentioned here, as well as the patch list, but that's pretty straightforward. If you look at your Korg Nano controller, if you do have one, under the track button there's a left and right button. Those buttons are pre-mapped to go up and down and select what patch you want. Now the output is just showing you the CPU load for your concert, and there's a mono button just in case you're running mono and not stereo. Just click that button and it'll turn your whole thing into a mono template rather than a stereo. Obviously you'd only use that mono button if you're running mono. It's going to sound a lot better in stereo otherwise. Okay, great. The only thing I missed was the piano compression. So let's go back to the piano. Let's mute all these, or I could just bring the volumes down. It doesn't really matter how you want to do it. So we've got soft compression. And then we've got hard. And then you've got extra hard by pushing both of those on at the same time. Whoops. Okay, so I've covered all of the buttons and sliders, I'm pretty sure. Now there's just one other thing I want to mention. So these already come pre-assigned to each patch. So if I go off that one and back onto that one, what you're going to notice is certain things get bypassed and turned on and volumes stay at a certain place. So that's the way that it comes in this template, but you are free to change that. Let's say you want the piano on and you want to change the volumes of these. It's really easy to do. But what I'd suggest is duplicating. So go Command D. It's just got to load these patches in, so it takes a little bit. The reason why I want to duplicate it is because if you make a mistake or you don't like what you've changed, you can just go back to the original and then maybe just name that edited or something like that. Now I'll show you how to change these. So let's say as soon as you go to Interstellar Dreams 1, you want the piano to be on. Click on this button, go down here and put saved value as on. Okay. So let's go off that and back onto it. See how now it comes default on. Let's say you want the octave to be always on. Go down to here, go to bypass, turn it off bypass. Now this is actually connected to two of them. It's connected to the other piano as well. So go to the second one and also hit that. Now it will default to being on. You can do this with sliders, knobs, everything. Let's say you like a little bit more reverb. Move that up to, let's say, roughly 10. Go down here, either type it in, -10, or move the slider up till it gets to where you want. Now you have to do it for 2 of them. If there's 2 of them there, it means you need to do it for both, because it's the reverb for both of the pianos, the close and the ambient perspectives. Okay, and so go back to the other one. Now your reverb's up, your close is on, your octave's on. And like I said, you can do that for all these buttons, and you can really customize exactly how it starts off before you start playing a sound, which is really handy to know. Okay, let's move down. I'm not going to cover the same things if the sounds are relatively the same. So this is just a different version of Interstellar Dreams. The leads actually have arps. One goes up and one goes down, so that's really cool to know. So let's play a chord and show you what's happening with that. So that's a different version. Let's go to the Obi Dreams. This one's similar as well, except I've got a bright Oberheim pad in there. It's kind of my default pad that I use for worship, so I wanted to put that one in the Interstellar Dreams kind of multi and renamed it Obi Dreams. Let's move on to Worship Multi 1. So a lot of our Hillsong worship albums have strings, so I've added a string section here and taken out the lead section for this multi. So I'm just going to solo just the strings and show you how that works. Okay, I'll just play something quickly and show you what it sounds like first. There's a really cool feature here. This button fast will turn your patch from a legato slow kind of string patch into a fast attack. So it's great for doing runs, for example. And then take it off. Whoops, wrong button. To go back to your slow line. So really cool feature. I kind of wish I had that with my string patches back in the day, because it allows you to go from really aggressive, fast, either runs or spiccato type lines, straight back to your really slow legato stuff, just by hitting that one button. Another cool feature is the ARP. It actually selects just a spiccato patch, so it takes away the slow legato and gives you an ARP for it. Sorry, if you hit the fast and the ARP, that's the best way of using it. So really cool feature, having the ARP and the fast. Obviously the tempo will affect the tempo speed, and if you want to go into even more detail, scroll across till you get to your strings, go to the ARP, and then you can create your own rhythms there, and your ARP will follow those rhythms. So you could have something like that. You could add more, do it an 8-bar. You probably don't want 9-bar, but that might be cool. Let's try that. Now this will play the whole chord. If you don't have that selected, it'll play the first note that you played. So let's try that. That's probably better. So that's a really powerful tool that you can use with your strings. Okay, let's go down. This is a similar setup. It's got the Holy Spirit pad, the Open Heaven River Wild pad that we used. And that's pre-mapped to the tempo of the song 138. So that's how I've set that one up. United Multi. This is becoming a little bit more aggressive, less ambient. It's got really nice Juno lead lines in there. So that one's perfect for doing kind of United stuff, but obviously not limited to just United stuff. I just named it based off what I would use it for at Hillsong Church. Then we're going on to even more aggressive stuff. So yeah, all the stuff at the top is ambient, and it gets brighter and more aggressive as you go down. So that's why the Young and Free stuff's at the bottom, and the kind of interstellar, dreamy, reverby stuff is at the top. Okay, so we've got a really cool bass here. Let's just solo that bass, show you what it sounds like. Okay, something's not soloed. What is it? Okay, this should have worked like this. I'm going to fix it so it works, but that should have been soloed as well. Okay, that's the bass. Here's a little trick that I might show you too. So let's turn on these. I've got to manually do this until I fix it. Your template won't come like that. I'll fix it before that gets sent out to everyone. So here's a little trick. Let's say you don't want any other patches to play at the very bottom where the bass is. That's really easy to do. So this is setting up the layer for the bass. You can move that up and down as far up as you want. But a cool little trick is go learn high key. See how it moved? You can just play it in and it will move it to the note that you played. So now I'm going to select these other ones. I can actually select multiple at the same time. No, I can't. It drops off, so you can only do one at a time. So OB pad, let's say the low key, I want to be one note above where the bass is. See how it moved to that? And I can do the same for this one. Learn low key. That one moved up to there. That one moved up, and we've just got the lead to do. Except I didn't hit learn low key. There we go. You could even do the same with the piano if you really wanted to and have the piano not getting in the road of the bass. So now they're completely separate. Again, if you're starting to edit stuff, I suggest going Command D, duplicating, and having a secondary patch just so you can go back to the original if you want to. Okay, let's go to the Young and Free Multi 2. Similar setup, just with a more aggressive trancey sound. And these sounds work great with the pulse. So let's turn this on and show you what it sounds like. So that's what that sounds like. Young and Free Multi 3 has a pulse pad, so that's pretty cool as well. Again, if you don't like that ARP setup, you can change it all in here and change the rhythm there. Okay, let's go to this one. The only difference between this one and Young and Free Multi 3 is the speed of the pulse, because you may want the ARP and the pulse to be at different speeds, so it's just half the speed. So that's the only difference there. Just a quick tip, if this comes up with 53, that's just the CC number. You don't have to worry about that. That just means it's not assigned to this specific patch. It is when you go to these and it's got the fast thing for the strings, but not for anything else. So I thought I'd quickly mention that. Okay, so the organ, like I said before, this is the exact same patch except an organ's replacing the piano. So I'm going to go over that. Obviously there's no piano, so there's not going to be any compression, so that's kind of blocked out here. Okay, so I'm going to just solo the organ, turn off these ones, and show you what the organ settings are. That's on slow. Hit this button and it'll go to fast rotor. Tone. That adds in another drawbar. So these are kind of the two drawbar settings that I use mostly for Hillsong Church. So that one. Cool. There's percussion. I don't usually use percussion much in church, but it's there if you want the option of it. Just adds a tack to the front end of the sound. We've got distortion. So you can get it really gritty and overdriven. We've got chorus. Again, I don't use that with worship songs, but it's there if you want to turn it on. And then we've got the reverb level. That's completely dry, and that's kind of the maximum that I use the organ with, so that's how I've set it up. Now, if you want more reverb, this is really easy to do. Go to here and just increase the maximum range. So move it up to 50, let's say, and you can have the save value as what I had it or even more. And now if I move the slider again, it'll give you more reverb. So that's really easy to do, and that's the organ section for you. Let's go on to the Rhodes. Now this one's a sweeter Rhodes, this one's a more aggressive Rhodes, so I wanted to give you both options. Again, I've set it without it on, so let's bypass these and turn the Rhodes on. Great. You've got tremolo control. So I like it around 30%, that's why I've saved it like that. This gives you the option of making an octave higher as well. So adding an octave above it. We've got chorus set on by default because that's how I like to use it. And this is cool, I added a reverb that makes it wide. So without it, sounds like this. With it. It's only subtle, but it just makes it wider. And you can edit that and make it even wider by turning up this. See, it's extremely wide now, which is kind of cool. It makes it sweeter sounding and obviously wider sounding. So that's the Rhodes section. You've got the reverb option as well. And drive as well. So all of that's customizable in real time. Now this is exactly the same, it's just a different type of Rhodes, so I'll show you the sound of that one. Again, you can turn the wide on if you want, put some more reverb, and even increase that if you want a default wider setting to be even wider, which is kind of cool. I actually like the wide setting a little bit more maybe. So that's getting close to a whirly sound. Now whirly is even more aggressive than that. So let's go to this one. Again, I'm going to bypass these. We've got octave as well, like the Rhodes. We've got the wide option. We've got more reverb, more drive, and more tremolo. Now the tremolo is actually mono for this one. The reason being a whirly doesn't produce stereo tremolo by default. It only produces mono, but there's always the option to change that if you want to. See, this stereo is on 0. If you want it to be stereo tremolo, now it's going to go left and right. And you especially notice that more if I start turning up this. See, now you can hear it. So you can customize all of that to your personal preferences. Yeah, and that's basically a quick walkthrough of all the patches. Obviously, I didn't go into detail on all the 13, 14, and 15 of the organ because they're all the same as the 2, 3, and 4 of the piano, just with the organ. There's one other thing that I'll mention. If you're using a controller that, let me go to this. So what happens is you run into problems when your screen volume is different to where the position of your hardware volume is. Like for example, if I go to this one and I move my hardware slider, it suddenly jumps up to there, which is not always ideal. But you can change that by going to Preferences, MIDI I think it is. Let me see. I haven't done this in a while, so parameter value, respond to hardware move. Here we go. Instead of jump, pick up, which means no values will change until your hardware slider reaches the same value as the software value. So let's do a little test and see what happens. So now it's on pickup. That means this slider's actually at the very top. Okay, this slider here is actually right up at the top. So I'm moving it, but it's not doing anything. But once I hit the bottom, it's gonna pick it up. That's what that name means, pick up, and move it. So it depends on your style. If you want it to move straight away, have it jump to the volume, jump to the parameter that it is, whether it's volume or whatever parameter it is, or pick up, which it won't move it until it gets to the same place. So I just thought I'd mention that because that can be a little bit frustrating sometimes when your slider's at a different place to the virtual slider here, and it just suddenly jumps up and is a little bit unexpected. But yeah, anyway, that's the kind of tutorial walkthrough video. Another thing I'll mention is if you do have questions about this template that I didn't cover, or you just got other questions about other products that are up on Multitracks, do email us at support@multitracks.com, and we'll be happy to help either with support if you're having trouble with setting up the template or anything related to a product, or if you're just wanting more information on products. So do that. So yeah, that's it from me. Thanks again for watching, and thanks again for your support.